Valdine is joining us remotely. Lincoln is joining us remotely. We've got 20 odd minutes. So I want us to really have a very progressive conversation. And I want us to really stick to the topic. And I think that's very, very important. But I also, in our culture, it's very important to introduce yourself. So I know all of you have extensive CVs. You're all celebrities in your own rights. I'm going to ask you to keep it as short and concise as possible. And if you don't mind, let's welcome Valdine, who I must tell you, you're so brave for speaking to nobody for 15 minutes. I love that. I love that. Valdine, very quickly, if you don't mind, just introducing yourselves. And then maybe I'll also throw this question to you as we facilitate this conversation. And if you can incorporate your response to this question, how do we create an economic response to promote the full involvement of women in 2020?
Hi, good morning again. I'm Valdine. You know, you say I was speaking to myself for 15 minutes on my own. My husband argues I've been doing it for the whole time of our marriage, so I think I'm very comfortable. I am the Director of Capital Markets at the JSE, and instead of alluding on my career, I'd rather say I'm a proud mother of three girls as well, so we have a strong household of girls rule the world. With regarding to women's involvement in any economic strategy or in any economic rationale, I think it's very nice that we're having a deliberate conversation, but I think the evidence has really been at hand. One thing out of COVID has really proved some lasting effects of what matters and how you really need deliberate efforts to turn things around. And I think what we've even seen is women leaders who have been navigating through these times have really been doing a better job than their male counterparts in economic recovery, because COVID has been so much more far-reaching than a pandemic that has affected health. It has affected society and longevity of ecosystems. It's put countries at risk in terms of the frailty of their economies. And some of the strongest leaders globally have been women who are navigating through these times. So I think in the short term and long term bursts, women are critical and vital at the sense of any economic longevity and viability for sustained development and growth. So I think that it really needs to be incorporated in every attribute, right from the most senior of roles at country level macroeconomics, down to the minutiae of how we're going to develop and grow SMEs and the entrepreneurial nature that women have in terms of conscientious investing, as well as in terms of really making a difference.
Lincoln?
I hope you can hear me. My name is Lincoln Mali. I am head of card and payments at the Standard Bank Group. I'm a father, I'm a husband, and I'm passionate about the agenda of he for she. And I think if I were to respond to the question you've posed, I'd like to bring it to what we can do in our spheres of influence. Because sometimes the problems are so big that we don't do anything and we don't tackle things in a way that can be effective. And so my idea would be each and every one of us in our sphere of influence, in the corporate sector in particular, how do we facilitate the growth and development of women across all the ranks? Not only the women in the W suite, but it's making sure that you have got women in all of the ranks so that you've got succession planning. Secondly, how do you create an environment where women don't only just succeed, but they thrive because there's support? And thirdly, that we don't create an environment where women are given a false choice between being a mom and a wife or a professional or an entrepreneur, that they can do it all on the basis of what they want. And last but certainly not least, how do we create an environment for entrepreneurs who are women to change the trajectory of our economy? Our economy at the moment is very concentrated with large companies. It needs an injection of new ideas, new innovation by entrepreneurs, particularly women. And it's what we can do in our spheres of influence to make that happen.
Thanks, Lincoln. I'm going to give you a compliment. You look quite stylish with that shirt. I'm going to send you a message. Can you just direct me where to get one? Janine, I also want to throw that question at you. But there's a couple of things that Valdine and Lincoln talked about that's a bit problematic for me. COVID, quarter one labor survey, we know that we had an unemployment rate that was hovering at 30 point something percent. We now know in the last 4 months we've lost 3 million, and people claim that government is lying about that number. But 3 million unemployed people, with the overwhelming majority being women. I am a bit worried that Lincoln and Valdine are still talking about we should.
Yeah.
And we're not. And how do we move away from the talk shop and get into the boardrooms, get into policy and regulation, and actually change the game immediately?
I think it's
Sorry, introduce yourself.
No, sorry.
Everybody knows you,
No,
but
no,
for
no,
the
don't
global,
ever do-
the global
Sam,
fan,
don't do that.
the global fan base that are watching you might not know Janine Hills.
No. So, I mean, thank you, first of all, Sam. Always a privilege to work with you. And, of course, my esteemed friend is on my left-hand side as well. But the key thing at the moment is I come from nothing. I come from a very, very, very poor background. And so you can see Sherry's trying to talk to me at the same time as well. So that worries me as well. If you ask me, that worries me when Sherry wants to talk to me. I come from a very, very, very incredibly poor background and a very, very violent background, which undoubtedly affects one as one grows up in your environment around you. But that was most possibly one of my staying forces that really helped me become the individual that I have learned to become and build my own personal confidence. I've never forgotten my isiXhosa background, and I don't want to learn Zulu. So this is my, I'm an Eastern Cape girl, and you don't ever forget your roots. And I think that's the key thing, Sam. And so having worked in some of the corporates and being a startup in Vodacom, yes, being a startup and building eBucks and turning F&B around and taking time out and building Vuma Reputation Management, just sold the company for a fully transformed reputation management company through Africa to phenomenal transformed people that are taking it forward. And now taking a little bit of time out, but now being able to do leadership. The key thing is, to me, is don't ever forget where you come from. And I think we do when we, people sort of look at me and go, oh, she's definitely had private schooling. She must come from Johannesburg. She must have gone to university. Well, dong, wrong on all accounts. So I used to cycle. I had one little uniform. I had one pair of shoes. I used to cycle 15 kilometers to school. But the key thing is, I never had a father. I never had a mother to support me. They were there, but they never had the education or the understanding to take me through the journey. So my friends became my family. And that's what I still have today. So I relate so much to what Toko was saying, is always surround yourself with people. So even today, we connected quickly, and I'm surrounded by my friends today on the stage. I feel comfortable. It was our first outing today, and I was surrounded by my friends because I came for Katie. And I think this is what we build in our lives. So we do business with each other. But Sam, I think that the key thing is you asked a direct question. What can we do right now? We have to help each other. We're forgetting very simple things, right back to our domestic worker and a helper at home that needs that help, that needs a job right now. She needs her salary. She needs a washing machine. Do I live a fancy life and my domestic worker has to wash her clothes with cold water in a bucket? Unacceptable. We need to start leveling those playing fields. And yes, I am responsible. Yes, I am responsible for making it right. So where I can affect now, do it now. And when COVID hit us, it was quite interesting. My salary dropped from there to here. We're just decimated. And in a very short space of time, all of a sudden, we made a couple of calls with a few of us, all women, and we said, okay, what are we going to do? And so we had a couple of little jobs coming in, and we said, how are we going to divide this amongst ourselves? That was the key thing, is how do we share? And it doesn't matter what it is. It was 10 grand, 20 grand. It was enough to pay for our rent. And it's about being humane right now. And I love what Valdine did. I know they just ran the She Invest this last weekend on the JSE. The one thing I like about their leader is they lead with heart. I think right now, as humanity needs to come through, whatever we do, Sam, let's lead with heart, please.
Joanna?
Yes.
Just in terms of that economic response and also just the introduction, what can we do right now?
Okay. So, hi, ladies, and those watching, obviously through streaming. My name is Johanna Mokoki. I am the CEO of a company called Travel with Flair. Started the company 24 years ago, and and I've been in travel ever since. I'm an accountant by profession. So coming back, I think, to the question, for me, obviously, being an entrepreneur all my life, never been employed a day, and I still think that it is saddening that in 2020 we're still talking about women still needing to be empowered. We're still talking about the gender gap, and I actually think that there needs to be more rigorous empowerment policies. I think that should be in place that, should support women getting into the mainstream economy. I think we're sitting close to the JSE, if you think about it, and think about how many women actually own companies that are listed on the JSE. You probably would realize that there is no women empowerment and supporting into the mainstream. I think even speaking about the JSE still, I'm thinking about the CEOs that actually are female that are on those listed companies. I think the study that came out, it was less than 10%. In spite of the fact that, the JSE, I think, over the years has tried to be able to, modify their listing requirements to ensure that there is some gender parity. And I'm sure our esteemed panelist as well will be able to support me on this. So, and I think I'm always not comfortable with women just being seen as running a small business there, a small puzzle shop. We're always being channeled into something small. Why? Because as Lincoln has said, by the way, he's a friend of mine and married to a dear friend of mine for many years. We were at varsity together. So I know that he's a she supporter. So that much, or else I would have called him out. Anyway, but I think that, us being, because women obviously have got other responsibilities, whether it's family responsibilities and, kids' responsibilities, there needs to be a way that women can be fully supported and fully, I think, empowered. And also, I believe that us as women, we don't want to take the help, by the way. It is okay that you can be a rockstar CEO running a huge corporation and then accept the fact that at home you can be able to have support staff that can be able to assist you with those women chores or duties as designed by men, because I think men also can, by the way, look after the kids and help us with the homework and be able to, I have an amazing example of what I'd once experienced sitting in a board meeting and I'm chairing. My son's school calls. My son had been injured at school. So what happens? Obviously, mommy will always be on the other side of the phone to be able to make it happen. And when I asked the school, I said, I'm actually in a board meeting. Have you called the husband? And say we can't get hold of him on the other line, so we had to be able to call you, and you had to pause. Board meeting has to be able to adjourn and you have to go and do mommy duties. But I'm just saying that it shouldn't be that it's only women that are supposed to be able to do that. And I think if we can be able to have more men that want us to be great and want us to be empowered and be able to step in and share the family responsibilities, I think very quickly we will be able to hopefully sing a different song. And women, I also think, especially in corporates, women are scared to also take the more demanding roles, senior roles, because why? They know that they will be able to be cut down, I think, on their family time. And it shouldn't be that one has to be able to choose the one for the other.
Yeah.
And so I just believe that women empowerment should stop being policy. It needs to be able to move into a reality, and government needs to be able to police this even more, because I find, yes, our government is wonderful and they've got these amazing empowerment policies for women, but those need to be policed properly, and there needs to be a way that one can be able to measure, and companies need to be held accountable of how quickly and how swiftly they move women up, and especially ensure that we get equal pay for the same job. Just saying.
So hi guys. My name is Nontokozo Madonsela. I am the Group Chief Marketing Officer of Momentum Metropolitan, and I've got a 20-year career in marketing. And thank you, Katie, for offering me the opportunity to be a part of the panel. In terms of your question, should I respond to the same question?
Yeah, please.
Cool, fantastic. So economic participation covered, the impact is devastating and more women are feeling it. What I think for me, there's several layers of conversation to be had. Right now, mental strength is everything. I think a lot of us are suffering, men are suffering equally mentally like women, but I think women, we have an inherent ability to have conversations. We are a lot more connected to ourselves emotionally, and I think we've got to, like you were saying, don't be shy to ask for help. So I think the first thing is that women must talk. Let's talk when you are struggling. Don't know why my mic is doing that. And then the other part, I think that a lot of businesses are pivoting their plans. A plan is a plan, and it can change. I think what cripples people and what cripples us as women is that we are sometimes embarrassed to change our track. You are embarrassed to adjust the plan. And I think that businesses are showing that innovation, and even COVID has shown that innovation and pivoting is...
Sorry about that.
No problem. Okay, do I switch this on now?
Yeah,
it should be on.
Yeah. Testing. Yes. No. Yeah. My voice is loud. Am I good?
Testing 1, 2.
Okay. Right. So the other thing that
Don't worry, we can hear you.
I need Zoom. Let's go back to Zoom. Okay.
All right, so let's just pause for a second.
Radio.
Okay, we're going to come back to you.
Cool.
Valdine, I've got a question. What does the data tell us? I mean, there are so many things, and when Katie called me and we had this conversation, and you know, there are many forms of leadership. I was joking earlier that Katie's leadership style is one of inclusion, but also coercion. So what does the data tell us at the moment, Valdine? Because at the moment, and let me break this down before I ask you the data question. This topic is, for me, quite an intense topic because there's a couple of things we have to unpack here. First, the full involvement of women in all economic activities, equal pay, equal access to opportunities, and social protection. And of course, we understand the definitions. For me, that's too much on the plate to deal with at once, or I just don't have the ability to spit and talk at the same time. What does the data tell us in terms of what we have to do? The Mercer report came out a couple of days ago. In actual fact, South Africa is doing much better than the rest of the world in some spaces. Yeah. So are we whining and moaning about nothing?
No, I don't think we're whining and moaning about nothing, and I think it's... Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
I don't think we're whining and moaning about nothing. I think there's a long trajectory of correcting on every facet that we need to do. And I think I agree with you. I do think we should stop talking about it. So what does the data tell us? And I guess it's which data you're looking at. You made the comment about the unemployment stats in South Africa, and that the rebuff really was felt largely to women. So the data there is telling us as well that there's households and there's economic impact that is really going to be dire, because at that level and at that far-reaching impact, you're going to have that feed down to well-being of families, as you mentioned, mental health, physical health, a whole lot of domino repercussions. Then when it comes to what we need for the trajectory of growth, as you mentioned, Joy had mentioned the disappointing stats to date of decades of democracy, even globally, that we haven't got corrected, of the influence of women at senior leadership level in entities, the bigger entities that count. And when I say that is, we have a very concentrated market in South Africa. And if I just look at JSE listed companies, we have over 300 companies listed on the exchange, but the top 40 companies or even the top 60 companies are among the largest in the country. And then you question how much of those are diversified at a woman level, whether it's woman representation on senior management levels or women in their companies. And it's still a very, very disappointing and unambitious target. So as much as we can put in things prescriptively about listing requirements or rules or anything to have disclosures and more empowerment, short of having a deliberate effort, people holding each other to account of saying, are you transforming leadership and direction of these entities? And when I say account is, you know, you have other European companies have done it on a quota basis, and you can also question, has that been successful? It may have got the numbers there, but then you also have the problem you have is the same type of woman and not a diverse representation, typically the same woman moving around. So the stats don't look good on every facet. However, The stats are changing. And one thing that has become very important is this concept of ESG investing and, a social investing for long term. And that's not just on listed company, it's across the spectrum in a country. And what is really going to be a stark reality within the next decade is this wealth transfer to women. And women would not only be what we're talking about influences within the ecosystem of trying to get roles in existing organizations. Women would become asset owners of how they deploy capital and cash. And that for me is also really important, because if you don't have the right women serving or resonating with the new types of investment that are coming up, and this could be investment on any facet, a small entrepreneur to a large corporate entity, you are going to have a misalignment of the right values, the right direction, the right objectives. So for me, the data looks disappointing and has a far way to go in the short term. My encouragement to everyone is hold each other to account. Are we making concerted efforts to empower, to appoint, and to give women opportunities to lead, to drive organizations, to grow businesses? And secondly, are we recognizing that the very same women have the potential to become these asset owners, commanders of the capital, and that we need to respond in ways that are long-term in what matters? And I really bring back to conscientious, empathetic leadership and investment, because that is what's going to be the long-term delivery of sustained growth. And it comes down to returns, return on your community, return on your investment, return on your country. And it really comes down to how much are we investing. And I strongly feel that the stats might look disappointing, but if it doesn't come from a concerted, deliberate effort to recognize what we need to change, then, we are just fooling ourselves to have quotas or conversations. It really needs to become practical and deliberate at the moment.
Okay, I've got to do something that I don't like doing, but we're running out of time. So I'm going to give everybody 20 seconds to just respond very, very quickly. Lincoln, how do we work out whether the strategy is long-term or short-term? What are the low-hanging fruit that we need to aim for immediately? And maybe why has Cyril Ramaphosa and his team failed us in this regard? Because as Joanna was saying, the policy is there, but it's not being policed. So what is the short-term, long-term view of what Valdine was saying? 20 seconds, everybody.
Yeah, I go back to what I said. If I take my business, what am I accountable for? If there are no women in my structures, I am accountable, not anybody else. Before I look at government and everybody else, if people in my team are not paid fairly and equitably, male and female, I'm accountable. If the right opportunities for learning and growth and big projects are not given to women, I'm accountable. If my organization as a whole is not changing, I'm accountable because I'm not doing anything. I'm not influencing. So what I find most of the time is that we have these broad statements. We allow people to escape their accountability. When we look at people, men and women, we must ask them, in your sphere of influence, what are you doing and what have you done? Most of the time, people just talk. I prefer to do and show by sheer example of how it should be done. Somebody comes in my environment and asks me, tell me about salary parity in your team. I'll tell you, I've achieved salary parity. Why? Because I worked at it with my team for 4.5 years. We worked at it and we achieved it. How's the growth of women in your team? This is what we've achieved because we worked at it. How do you get women in boards? We've done it. And so every business can be held accountable if we do that. My fear is that we talk there and everybody else, and then everybody then escapes. Hold individuals and companies accountable. Before people speak, ask them, show us your track record. Whether you're a male or a woman, show us where do you stand on gender issues. What's your track record on gender issues? Are there women in your team? Are they reaching the right levels? What's the culture in your team? Do people feel that they are empowered in your team? So those are the things that I think are important. Otherwise, it becomes a broad and general thing. And then we just pivot to say more laws. We don't need more laws. We just need people to do what is needed to be done and have the courage of their convictions to do what needs to be done.
Lincoln, thank you. We're running out of time. Janine, very quickly.
I think he's a hero. Can we have more Lincolns in our life? Really, I think he's a hero. Really. And I think it's about our men. I think women, we're tired. I have to be honest, enough is enough. And we need men to now really be leading this forward and open those opportunities. We don't want to be men. We love being women. And we want to lead with heart. And I think right now the world is calling for that. So I think this is the time where men and women unite and work together and work towards the stats. And let's grow together to create an incredible world together. Because clearly I think COVID showed us what's been done in the past ain't working. Let's please move towards a trajectory that's more inclusive, alleviate the poverty and bring people up the ladder with you as you move through. So thank you, guys.
Joanna?
I think for me, as women leaders as well, within our businesses, we obviously have to lead from the front and be the example as well, that we do empower women, I think, within our organizations. I think I currently employ 86% of my staff complement countrywide is women. And even with the different categories of jobs, it's the category. It's not because it's going to be filled by a woman. And I think once we obviously lead by example, hopefully we can be the catalyst to be able to show that it does happen and it is possible. And women are truly loyal. They will stay with you. I have double-digit years on most women that have worked with me in my business, and women really work hard. You know, I think we're in it to win it, especially because we obviously not only have our families to be able to feed, but obviously the greater community. And I do also concur with what Lincoln says. In corporations, unfortunately, there's very few of the types of Lincoln who want to be able to do it because it's a conviction from themselves. And that's why we still need these policies that need to be in place, that people need to be able to have some sort of track record in terms of how they're achieving their gender parity and women empowerment within their businesses. But more importantly, there needs to be some way that government can be able to take away points, give points, so that corporations actively know that if you don't achieve this gender parity, whether it's on your boards or in senior management, that there should be some sort of repercussions. That's
So I think three things.
Yeah.
First, let's normalize talking about money. Let's normalize it amongst ourselves. Even if you look at Hollywood, leading amazing women. Viola talks about it all the time. Are not paid fairly. So let's talk about it. The second part is it's going to hit us where it matters most. So Lincoln's bonus must be tied to how he treats us. Bonuses, the ratios must be factored in. And I think the third part is that let's teach young girls. So some of us, I mean, we're over the line of 40 is the new 30 now. Yes, I'm grateful for that. But I want the young daughters, the 5-year-olds, the 10-year-olds, to have the confidence to say that this is what I'm worth for these reasons, so that it's too late when they get to their jobs. They've got to have the confidence, and their voice must be clear and respected from a young age.
Guys, you've said so much that we could have unpacked. Unfortunately, we've run out of time.